Funding for this program is made possible by Burke Nursery and Garden Center in Burke, Virginia. You'll find trees and shrubs, perennials and annuals, water garden supplies, houseplants, and bird and gardening supplies. Burke Nursery also provides landscape, plant diagnostic, and installation services, and much more. For more information, you can check out their website or call 703-323-1188.
Welcome to Gardening with Burke Nursery, the show where we help you grow your garden, increase the curb appeal of your yard, and share information on all plants. I'm your host, Misty Kucheris, the horticulturalist at Burke Nursery and Garden Center. You know, it's that time of year, fall, when thoughts turn to your lawn. You want to rejuvenate it from all the indignities it suffered during the summer months: drought, weeds, and of course, more weeds. As a matter of fact, for those of us who have cool season grasses such as fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, or perennial ryegrass, now is the best time of year to improve your lawn and increase its health. So let's start with the basics: improving the root strength of your lawn. This time of year, I get a lot of people that either like to send me pictures or they like to come into the nursery and show me pictures of their lawn. As a matter of fact, I want to show you some of the pictures that they show me. So this first picture, it looks as if there's all dirt in this first picture, or it looks like somebody came and spilled something and killed all the soil, but that's compacted soil. Now, the next picture is a picture of what I call thatch. And thatch I'll be talking about later, but thatch is actually dead grass. And then finally, the final picture is of a stressed lawn. And then honestly, from this picture, I can't tell whether the lawn is stressed with a fungal infection, which is possible because drought, moving to rain, moving back to drought, or whether it is compacted soil leading to dead grass, and all of that could be thatch. Well, when you want to take care of your lawn, the first thing to remember is timing. Timing is everything. So in the Northern Virginia region where we live, we tend to get our first frost either mid-October, maybe towards the end of October, which means if you're going to plant any new grass seed or do what we call overseeding, where you're putting grass down, then you have to really start thinking about doing it no later than mid-October, and usually around Labor Day is the best time to start. So step one, let's see about those weeds. Well, there are different products that you can put on your lawn to help you get rid of the weeds. And the first product is what we call weed killer for lawns. What that means is that this can kill your broadleaf weeds, this can kill your crabgrass, but the problem is that you have to wait 4 weeks before you can put down any type of grass seed. Then there are also some other products for lawn that, again, they go after your broadleaf weeds. These don't necessarily kill the crabgrass though, but you can put down seed in 2 weeks. And then another type of weed killer is what we call the non-select weeds, or the non-select weed killer. And what non-select means is that it'll kill everything. It'll kill the grass, it'll kill your lawn, it'll kill the weeds. So this is only when you really want to do a major renovation of your lawn. Now, this product says Roundup, but they've changed the chemical formula. So it's no longer glyphosate. And when it used to be glyphosate, you could use Roundup, and then you could actually overseed 24, 48 hours longer. Now that it's a different chemical, You cannot overseed for 1 week, but at least you're able to overseed within 1 week. This depends on again, it has some of the same chemical as the Roundup product, but again, it will kill everything. And then finally, weeds, and more weeds is like what I like to say. There are some weeds that are not broadleaf weeds. And what do I mean, by the way, when I talk about broadleaf weeds? What I mean, broadleaf weeds are basically your flowers. Broadleaf weeds are any plant in the wrong place. So that can be the wild violets is broadleaf weed, or that can be lepidesia, which is flat on the surface. Lepidesia and medic, those weeds can be some of the worst because they don't have any roots. They'll even grow on weed barrier cloth. But then there are some weeds that we call the grassy weeds or sedge. And nut sedge is something that's very common in this area. And that you need a special weed killer. You need a sedge killer. Otherwise, the broadleaf weed killers won't work. The crabgrass weed killers won't work. So when you're thinking about killing the weeds in your lawn, you have to think about the timing. So if you're using a product that'll take 4 weeks and you want to put down grass seed in mid-September or the end of September, think 4 weeks ahead. Or if you're going to use a weed killer that you can put down grass seed in 2 weeks, again, think 2 weeks ahead. And what's great is that Virginia Tech, at least in our area, and Virginia State University, part of the Virginia Cooperative Extension, actually puts down what they call a maintenance calendar for cool season turf grasses. And they even put one out for your warm season turf grasses like zoysia grass. And if you don't live in Virginia, don't worry. Each state has an extension office, and you can contact your state's extension office, and they will be happy to provide you with a maintenance calendar for the grass. So remember the pictures that I was showing you earlier in the show, and I said, this one looks like it's a bare spot, and the next one is thatch, and then the next one is the general overall distressed lawn. One of the things that people don't do often enough is get rid of that thatch. And thatch is, as I said, it is dead grass. So I have some pictures here first to show you. The first picture is a close-up of the thatch. As a matter of fact, it's a close-up of some thatch that I happened to pick up from a neighbor and said, I will actually bring this back to you so we can replace the hole when done. And thanked him that I could use this as a sample. Then the next is another close-up of the thatch, but I've removed some of the thatch from the area. And if you look at the picture where I've circled it, where I've removed the thatch, there is actual soil there. Hey, something that the seeds can grab a hold of. So here's the problem with thatch. If you have more than a ½ an inch of thatch, and of course I didn't bring my ruler, but let's say a ½ an inch is to this tip. If you have a ½ an inch of thatch, and there definitely in this section of the lawn is a ½ an inch of thatch, what happens is several things. First of all, when it rains, the rain has trouble getting into the ground. Or worse, let's say we're in drought and you're out there trying to water your lawn and your lawn is full of thatch. That thatch is going to prevent that water that you're paying money for from penetrating into the lawn. That's one of the problems. The other is that thatch can house insects, it can house some other problems. But the worst thing is that if you have too much thatch, the soil gets compressed. So when you try to overseed, you're not going to be able to get any grass seed. And then, because the soil is getting compressed, what happens is that the roots that are there really can't grow. So that really can create a problem. What do? Well, what we want to do is get a rake, and you want to just rake this thatch out, literally. And when you rake the thatch out, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I'm killing my lawn. I've got all these bare spots there. No, actually what you're doing is you're improving the soil, and your grass roots of those areas where the grass is healthy is really going to appreciate you. And while I'm showing you the rake, what you really want to do, if you're going to do this yourself to dethatch, is you really want to get a dethatching or a thatching rake. And that is this. So basically what you do is you rake the lawn, and these blades here, and they're sharp, they are sharp, will take up all the thatch. It'll leave the room that you need for the soil. It'll also actually start loosening that soil, so that way you can get fertilizer in there. Oh, and that's the other problem when you have too much thatch. You can fertilize your lawn all you want, but very little of that fertilizer is going to get into the lawn. And if you don't want to rake your whole lawn because, let's say you have 10,000 square feet, a quarter of an acre, the good news is you can always rent a thatching machine. And a thatching machine has these things here. It has the rake part, but it looks like a lawnmower. Very, very, very heavy lawnmower. And you just walk back and forth with your property as that machine will thatch for you. So that's a critical step after you have killed your weeds, is the thatching. Now, the next step in taking care of your lawn is something that you really want to do every 2 years. The dethatching that I spoke about, you do that every year. But the next step is what I call aeration, or if you want to call it another word or 2 words, is core aeration. And what I mean, if you take a look at this picture here, this is a picture of aeration. And you'll see basically what aeration does is that aeration puts holes into your ground, and core aeration, depending on the type of equipment that you're using to aerate your lawn, will actually pull out chunks of the lawn, and then you'll see cores all over your lawn. So if you decide that you want to rent a core aerator, then basically what it has tubes, and it looks, again, like a lawnmower, but again, it's extremely heavy, and you just walk around and this roll of tubes comes, and each tube will go into, and you can tell this is soil that has been compacted, so this is not so easy for me to do. But when the machine goes, it actually goes real fast, and it dumps these cores, and then you have basically a hole that's left. And you want these holes. And some people will actually fertilize just before they do core aeration, or they'll also get gypsum. Gypsum in Northern Virginia is really something for you to keep in mind. What it does is it breaks down clay. Or even if you live in other areas where perhaps you need to break down clay, but you don't want to change the pH, that's what gypsum is good for. So some people will actually put down gypsum, or they'll put down fertilizer before they do the core aeration, because then they know that's getting into your soil, that's getting into the ground. The other, then finally, and let me make sure I've said everything here about core aeration, is, in New England where I grew up, the way that we did aeration, as a matter of fact, in our property. Now, granted, the soil is a lot different in New England. We would put on golf shoes, the ones with the big spikes, and we would actually walk around the lawn. And we would do this in the winter months just before we would, or in the fall, just before we put down seed. And as we're walking, we're actually aerating the lawn. Do I recommend doing that in Northern Virginia or even Georgia or wherever you have clay soil? Not necessarily, because you might get your feet stuck. I've tried it, it's happened to me. But if you're in an area where you have a little better soil and you still want that air to get into the soil, think about some kind of cleats that you can put on and walk around. Now, the final thing that is critical, very, very critical, is top dressing. And what is top dressing? That's the biggest question I have. Well, top dressing is when you put some form of compost. And mushroom compost is one of my favorites. Why? Because it has a pH of 6.2, and that's the closest to perfection for pH when you want to grow grass. Or if you make your own compost, that's fine. Or some places will sell topsoil that's organically enhanced, so that means that compost has been put into that topsoil. That's what you want to use, something that will enrich the soil. I even recommend top dressing in your garden areas where you have trees and shrubs, especially if you have azaleas, rhododendrons, dogwoods. These are some of the tree and shrubs that have their roots closer to the surface. Maple trees, that's another one, the native maple trees. They have to have their roots above surface if they want to breathe. So definitely at least every 2 years, definitely top dress, but I recommend actually every year. So top dressing sounds, the biggest question I have is, well, how do I get top soil into areas where I have grass? Well, first of all, if you've removed the thatch and if you've done the core aeration, now you have more breathable space. Now, if you didn't need to remove thatch, yes, you'll have a thick lawn, but it still doesn't hurt to do a little top dressing. And how much top dressing? Not a lot. All you're going to do is literally a 1/2 inch of top dressing. That's it. So there's also, some people will use, there's some products out there on the market that are a form of top dressing that also contain a little calcium, that also contain a little gypsum in them. That's something you can use. Like I said, you can definitely use your own compost if you want. So what I want to show you here is just take a look at this grass. This is grass that I actually planted in this container to show you what happens to your grass when you have great soil. And this grass I planted about 10, 11, 12 days ago. And it was already up when it came to, when a week was done. And the other thing is, you hear a lot of companies saying, well, the grass roots are really deep. We can get them deep. Well, you can if you take care of your soil. And let's see here. So right here, let me just, okay, 10 days later, 11 days, it would have been wise if I had maybe put the date on, but I figured, about a week to 10 days before taping the show. And look at how deep some of those roots are. And this is the other important thing to realize about grass. When grass first grows, its roots are very, very, very fragile, which is another reason that it's critical to get that lawn and get that soil and get it so that it's not compacted. Otherwise, these poor little roots, they're phenomenal. They're just really growing, and they're growing well. But that's because this soil is letting it. Where if you have compacted soil or you have thatch, you can pour all the grass seed you want. And here's the other interesting thing. When it comes to grass seed, there's basically 2 different types of grass seed. And one grass seed will say, let me move that out of the way. When you look at grass seed, one of your grass seeds, if you look at the label, will say mixture. And what mixture means is that it's various different types of grass seed. This is cool season grass seed, but it's a combination of tall fescue, combination of Kentucky bluegrass, combination of perennial rye. The perennial rye will come up within 5 to 7 days. The Kentucky bluegrass will come up within, about 10 days. Tall fescue, about 2 weeks, sometimes as long as 3 weeks. But that's good, because what that means is that as it grows with that perennial ryegrass coming up real fast, it sets the roots so that the other forms of grasses can grow nicely. Or you may see this on a label. Blend. The word blend. And what that means when you see blend on the label, that means that it's the same, it's different varieties, but basically the same type. So this blend is all tall fescue. And tall fescue is usually when you buy sod, usually your sod is tall fescue. You can also get zoysia grass as sod if you want a warm season, or you can get Kentucky bluegrass as sod. I don't recommend necessarily the Kentucky bluegrass as sod unless you have a lot of sunny location. And then when you fertilize, what you want to do is, if you're putting down a lot of seed, you want to put down a fertilizer that's seeding and sodding. What does that mean? Well, if you look at the numbers of your fertilizer here, the first number is the nitrogen, the second number is the phosphorus, and the third number is potash. The phosphorus is what goes to increasing the root strength. So that's why when you're putting down a lot of grass seed or putting down sod, you want to make sure that that middle number is the highest number. If, though, you just added a little bit of seed, then what you want for your fertilizer is, and one would think this small bag isn't that heavy, but boy, is this small bag heavy. And let's see. What you want, that first number, nitrogen, because you want the blades of your grass to get green. You want the blades of your grass to thrive. 0 phosphorus, that's great. It doesn't really need it when it's thriving. Potash is for the overall health, so that's fantastic. And then finally, which is what I got to when I was talking about the grass seed. People say, well, how do I plant my grass seed? So this is how I planted the grass seed that was in this container. I mean, when you're doing it at home, you will want some kind of rotary spreader or some kind of drop spreader, whether it's one you walk behind or whether it's one that if you have small property, then it can be handheld, not a problem. But this is all you're going to do, is take your grass seed, and that's it. There, see how that seed is at the top? You don't spend any time putting that seed into the soil. Instead, birdies will love that seed, so you don't want to leave that seed that way. You take a little compost and you simply top dress it, just like that. And voila, it's fall, you're going to have a beautiful lawn. Hey, getting rid of weeds and overseeding your lawn in the fall is critical to increasing the health of your lawn. At the same time, it's important to make sure that your soil can give the lawn roots the nutrients they need. So take time to dethatch, aerate, and top dress the lawn before you put down the grass seed. The more time you take to nourish your lawn, the happier your grass will grow. If you have any questions about fall lawn care or gardening in general, just email me at misty@burkenursery.com. I'm your host, Misty Kucheris. Thank you for spending your time with me here at Gardening with Burke Nursery. I'm looking forward to helping you grow your garden.
Funding for this program is made possible by Burke Nursery and Garden Center in Burke, Virginia. You'll find trees and shrubs, perennials and annuals, water garden supplies, houseplants, and bird and gardening supplies. Burke Nursery also provides landscape, plant diagnostic, and installation services, and much more. For more information, you can check out their website or call 703-323-1188.